A very good evening to you, Jasmine.
Hello there.
Now, Jeremy Corbyn has offered a new settlement. He's not even tried to find new words for a new settlement. This is sort of old speak to try and throw away some capitalist machinery in favour of a bit of socialism.
Yes, it was a good speech. It was well received. It was probably one of the best speeches I've heard him make, frankly. But I have to say, my heart sank when I heard words like National Education Service and National Investment Bank. Honestly, they sound like sort of phrases that you might hear in communist Russia or even, frankly, Nazi Germany. I say this quietly, but, you know, it's that sort of totalitarian, state-run, grey, frankly, quite depressing sound to me, anyway.
Well, responding to the speech, I think you've got company there with you, Jasmine, because the British Chamber of Commerce, their acting Director General Adam Marshall said, while businesses agree that investment in infrastructure and skills is crucial to the UK's future success, ergo that is roads, rails and education, many will be concerned that Corbyn is already reaching for the tax lever by asking businesses to pay for his education plans.
Yeah, I think that the thing is with tax, you know, the words that I really get fed up of hearing when used about tax is fair, because taxes are never fair for everybody. It's always deemed unfair. In fact, any tax you put on someone who's not fair, it's not fair. I think what we need to think about with tax is what is practical. And the problem is, and I totally understand where he's coming from, he's right that we've had more inequality recently. We do need to close that gap. But when you say, right, we're going to tax the rich, we're going to tax businesses, if you don't do it with extreme caution, you can really destroy the goose that lays the golden egg. And you know, if you tax businesses too much, they're just going to stop. They're going to move elsewhere, so that creates unemployment. If you tax the rich too much, same happens. So it kind of has to be done really carefully, and I don't think that he's prepared to do things carefully. I think he does everything from a political point of view, not from a practical one.
He cuts his nose off to spite his face, like he's done it with the party, and now he'll do it with tax, even though you'd raise more tax probably by lowering the rate and encouraging wealthy people here. He doesn't care because of his principles.
Well, I think this is the issue, because you know, everybody has a different view of what's fair and even workable when it comes to tax. I mean, if you look at Hong Kong and Singapore, they have basically a flat rate of tax. It's either 15 or 20%, depending which country you're in, and that's what you pay. It doesn't matter, you could be multi-millionaire, you still pay 20% or whatever. Now, some people would say that's fair. They would say, well, you earned it. Why should you be penalised for working extra hard, for doing better, for creating wealth for the country? Why should you be penalised?
Especially if your first 25 grand is tax-free or something like that. So if you're on well, not even a low wage, you wouldn't get taxed, but it's 20% to everyone above that.
Yes, exactly. And again, you know, some people say that's fair, whereas if you're in the Scandinavian countries, they have very much a sense that everybody puts a lot of money into the pot and then everybody takes out from it as well. So you basically got sort of 40-50% tax there, and you've got free education and health and, you know, very good services. But then other people say, well, you've got the same actually in Hong Kong and Singapore. So you know, at the moment, we seem to teeter between a bit of both. We fall between two stools. You've got a lot of people saying, oh, the rich should be paying more tax. You've got a lot of other people, and I think you've probably got more in Britain actually saying, no, they shouldn't. People should work for their money. And we just don't seem to get a proper consensus. So we veer from one to the other depending on who's in power.
Now, Corbyn also outlined, as you just mentioned, whoever's in power, he wants to extend plans for a surge of council house building funded by the removal of borrowing caps on local councils, a broad programme of public investment and a reinstatement of some trade union rights. It's as though he wants to turn the clock back to 2 years before the winter of discontent. I'm being serious. What on earth is he talking about to anyone over the age of 45? We remember.
Well, that is the problem, and I think, you know, as you say, he's not interested in practicalities, he's interested in his own political principles, and it's really not going to win over the certainly English heartland, English and Welsh. I don't know about Scottish, but generally speaking, people are right of centre. I think in Middle England, they are, as you say, they are older as well. The electorate, the people who actually vote, tend to be older, and they do remember the winter of discontent. As you say, they don't want trade union power anymore, and they, well, certainly though we do have a problem with housing. Whether it should be council housing or not, it depends who you speak to. But again, I think the Middle England, the heartland, the people who are actually voting, tend to want people to buy their own houses and do them up, work for their money, etc., etc. There's very much a feeling at the moment against people taking benefits, against people living off the state. And Corbyn is very much saying, no, we want to expand the state. That's what we are about. That's what the new Labour, or the new old Labour, is about, expanding the state.
Now, talking about corporation tax, which we've had John Redwood as a guest on a few days ago, he basically said what Ash has just said, which is that if you lower tax rates, you encourage business, and therefore the tax take goes up. And here we have a definitive statement from Corbyn, no monkey business, 1.5% to reinstate education maintenance, 1.5% on corporation tax. Basically, this is going to put SMEs out of business and will play into the hands of corporate companies. So basically corporations will flourish, even though they'll pay more tax at the expense of SMEs. This is a disaster, I think, for the fabric of our nation of shopkeepers, as Napoleon might have called us.
Yes. Well, yes and no. I mean, corporation tax has been brought down by the Tory party, so it would be being brought up from a relatively low level. But yeah, again, as you say, putting tax on business, it can cut off your nose to spite your face. You can be killing off that which is creating the work, that which is creating the wealth. So then you create more unemployment, which is why, I think it has to have more finesse. Having said that, I do think that we need more money in education. It's just that we need it spent more wisely. I think both sides of the political spectrum have destroyed pretty much our education system over the last few decades, and it would be really good to pull it up, because compared to many other countries, certainly other countries in Europe, our kids are really badly educated. They're not doing well for business itself. So I would like to see it spent more, but it's the rhetoric that bothers me. Yeah, 1.5%, that's not great. Yeah, that could be followed by another 1.5% later on, and then yet another 1.5%. So it's really the direction that his thinking is going in, more than the actual figures, that bothers me, because who knows? As you say, if he gets in, he could really try to pull the clock back and get us back to the 70s, which we don't want.
Yeah, and of course this country, the small businesses make the most money, and the big corporations, this wouldn't affect them. They don't pay corporation tax anyway. They've got the money for the lawyers, so it would actually make the competition even easier for the corporation.
They'd flee. They'd leave the country.
Well, it might be advantageous to them, because they won't have to pay these extra taxes, because they'll have a lawyer that will find a loophole like they do now.
Well, I tell you, one thing that I am in favour of, and this is quite a left-wing view, is the renationalisation of the railways. And I think I'm just so sick of them. I think railways is one of those things that basically we just have to take the hit on. We have to accept that to have a functioning railway system, you have to do what they do in France, in Italy, and just have the state pick up the bill, basically, just so that we can keep people moving.
The railways were infinitely better today than they were in the 1970s. Let's make no mistake, more people are being transported quicker into more places. It might have its frustrations, but nationalised railways were terrible, Jasmine, and we cannot go back to that, surely.
Do you think? Because they just seem to be. Well, maybe my
depends what lines you're on, doesn't it? Really, on what your view is.
Yeah,
well,
there are some companies who
run
well.
South-East. That's bad, isn't it, at the moment?
Yes, and that's the thing. I come from Sussex, so all my family are like.
In my opinion, what they should do is keep organisations privatised to run the railways, but make the contracts longer so that they encourage investment within them. At the moment, they're 10 years long, so there's no point in investing in rolling stock outside of London. So
that's a very good point. Yeah,
these are the issues. I couldn't bear taking a nationalised railway, because even though they're not as profit-making as perhaps they might be, and they're not really fully privatised anyway, Jasmine, I've got to take issue with you there. We you know.
And the sandwiches, of course.
Yes, exactly.
They were horrible.
They're still horrible.
Yes, mind you, exactly, they're still horrible. Have you been on trains in France and in Italy? You know, for a tenner, pretty much, you can go for miles and miles, and they're good.
Yeah.
Germany, interestingly, they have problems with theirs. I'm not quite sure why, but because you assume that in Germany they're all, you know, working perfectly well. Actually, they're not. They're constantly on strike and breaking down. But France, I've been in trains, you think, wow, this is the way to travel.
Yeah.
And Italy's so cheap. So,
and efficient, comfortable.
Yeah.
French trains are gorgeous and lovely, but they pay 107% tax. And Italy, well, it's like being in Zambia, isn't it? But it is cheap. It is cheap. Jasmine, thank you so much for joining us tonight.